So it wasn't too long ago that Triff Gaming posted his video about his Eldritch deck and how that deck got him to be very high rated on Dueling Book, and that kind of inspired me to start playing more back row decks, and this is what I came up with. So I have an Amazement deck here, and let's go ahead and get into it and explain how it can actually just clap some of the meta decks out there. Okay, so this is the Amazement deck that I've been having a lot of fun with and actually has a good matchup against Tri-Brigade and any other deck that kind of can't deal with the trap cards. So to start for the profile, we got triple copies of Arlecchino because this card's very easy to bring out, especially on your opponent's turn. All you have to do is bring it out after a trap card has been activated, and once it's on the field, it can equip your Amaze Attraction tracks directly to your opponent's monsters when they summon them. That is a once per turn. It's not like you can do that to every monster they summon, but that can provide you with an answer to at least one summon, which feels really good. 2 copies of Ecclesia for value generation. This card gets you access to your Dogmatic of Punishment, and Punishment is really good because it destroys stuff and sends monsters from your extra deck to the graveyard, which always felt really good. 3 copies of Amaze Attendant Comica, so another normal summon in the deck, allows you to set a Amaze Attraction trap directly from your deck. Once again, really nice. 2 copies of Nadir Servant, so this card's still really expensive, but I am going to pick it up when the Mega Tints come out and it gets reprinted. Very excited for that. But yeah, sending monsters from the extra deck to the graveyard and getting a search, yes please, this card is busted. Probably should get limited to one day, but who knows when that will be. 2 copies of Extra because we don't really need our extra deck very much. We play 3 copies of all the important extra deck monsters, and just being able to +1 off this card always felt really good as well. 2 copies of Pot of Duality. This card is better than Pot of Prosperity in my opinion, just because we don't actually special summon on our turn. Like, we already have the Pot of Extrav to kind of use our extra deck as a resource, so we don't really need more cards that do that, and we don't really care about the restriction of duality, so I figured why not play this over Prosperities as well. Also, this card is like maybe 1/100th or like 1/200th of the price of Pot of Prosperity, which, you know, can come up if you are not made of money. 3 copies of Amazing Time Ticket, so this card is crazy, gets you access to all your Amazement stuff, and even during your opponent's turn you can set an Amaze Attraction trap directly from your deck and activate it that turn. Really nice. 2 copies of Torrential Tributes, so for the traps we are playing 2 copies of the generic traps, so Torrential Tribute is very hard for Tri-Brigade to deal with, you know, just being able to wipe their board after they summon something and then bring out an Arlecchino after that. That really feels good when that happens. 1 copy of Rapid Racing for shuffling stuff from your opponent's graveyard back into their deck. That's really good against Sky Striker, you know, when they bring out the Engage into their graveyard, or if they have a Ray in their graveyard, go ahead and shuffle those things back into their deck. 3 copies of Amaze Attraction Cyclo Coaster. So this card is good for getting value over the course of the game because it searches Amazement monsters from your deck, but also can pop back row as well. Most of the time I'm using it for the search, but popping the back row just feels really good too. 1 copy of Trap Trick to get us into our normal trap cards. 3 copies of Dogmatic of Punishment for searching off of Ecclesia, but also just an insane card overall as well. 3 copies of Horror House, just because this card flips your opponent's monsters face down, but can also negate the effects of your opponent's monsters. Just know that it's better to use this on your own, maybe Comica, on your on your opponent's standby phase, because you need to have this card activated before your opponent actually goes into like activating effect, because you can't actually use the activation effect to target and the activated effect of this card in the same chain. So you just kind of have to have this card ready for when you suspect your opponent is going to summon something and use its effect. 1 copy of Wonder Wheel. This card is good for kind of shuffling back your dead cards. So once you have an Imperial Order up, all your spell cards are dead, and this card can put them back into your deck and dig you into something else, which is nice, and that's really the only reason why I play it. Maybe it's not quite optimal, but I like it, and that's why I'm playing it. 2 copies of Compulse, so once again, maybe this card isn't optimal, but I like it a lot because even in 2021, your opponent still only gets 1 normal summon, and also you can use it on your own monsters, like your own Kamika's or Ecclesias if you need to get more value off of them, which is cool. 3 copies of Summon Limit, so I do believe Summon Limit is the best floodgate in the entire game. Right now it's even better than There Can Be Only One in Rivalry, just because it just shuts down decks so hard, and this card is crazy. And I don't actually like Rivalry or There Can Be Only One in this deck as much, because sometimes when I do want to go into Utopia or Utopia the Lightning, There Can Be Only One would prevent that, because maybe I have 2 Kamika on the field, and I wouldn't be able to have 2 Kamika on the field to go into one of these if I had the There Can Be Only One. Same thing with Rivalry of the Warlords. It would not allow me to go into a warrior if I have 2 machines on the field, so that's why I kind of veered away from the other floodgates, even though they could still work in this deck just fine. But I would rather have the niche option of being able to use my extra deck. Then 1 copy of Imperial Order, just because it shuts down spell cards, and 3 copies of Solemn Strike, because this card's insane going first or second. Being able to stop a monster effect or a summon of a monster, just it's really insane. You just use this on a Sky Striker Link monster, and it doesn't even hit the field, so Ray can't come back to the graveyard, which insane. So that's it for the main deck. Let's go ahead and go on into the extra deck. Okay, for the extra deck, we are on triple copies of Titanic Lad, just because it gets us an Ecclesia during the end phase that it was sent to the graveyard, so that's really strong. Triple copies of Entis, because it pops something when it gets sent to the graveyard. 1 Omega, because it can shuffle stuff back into our deck after it gets sent to the graveyard. 1 Wind Pegasus for, honestly, this card's very niche. I hardly ever send it to the graveyard, but it can shuffle stuff back to your opponent's deck if your opponent destroys one of your monsters by battle while this is in the graveyard. 2 copies of Utopia the Lightning to make on top of Utopia, so that we can have a 5,000 beater to beat over something like a Dragoon, which doesn't come up super often, but when it does, your opponent can't actually respond to this card's effect, so that's why I like it. 1 copy of Baguska in a niche case where you need to where you have 2 level 4s and you kind of need to stall at the game. This card can do that. 1 copy of Dugaris, so this card can draw you stuff, but also it can boost up your Arlecchino to have 5,200 attack, which can be useful. And then 1 copy of Farragut to send off of Dogmatic Punishment, so that we can kind of fix our hand a little bit. But once again, this card's pretty niche. So that's really it for the extra deck. Nothing too special there. Let's go ahead and get on into a game, just to kind of showcase how this deck can actually clap the best deck out there. Okay, so here we have me playing the Amazement deck. My opening hand is pretty nice, but my opponent's hand is also really nice as well. So we are going to go ahead and step through this and show you guys what this deck can do against the Tri-Brigade. So he is going to go ahead and activate the Tenki, adding the Fractal to hand. Go ahead and activate the Fractal, dumping kit effect, dump Nerval effect, add a Keras to hand. So now he has options to special summon the Keras, as well as being able to normal summon the Nerval as well. So his hand is really good. So he's going to go ahead and special summon out that Keras. Going to use this effect for 2, bring out a Bearbrum, go into Nerval effect, banish 2, go into the double Dragon Lords, then going to go and link into Apollosa, grab a Revolt, put back Desires, set the Revolt, and pass to me. So under most normal circumstances, having this amount of interruption during my turn would be pretty much impossible, if not very difficult for me to play through, but we are going to be most certainly playing through this anyways with the amount of resources we have and the combination of traps that we have in our hand. So we are just going to, put on the helmet, strap it on, set 5 back row, and pass the turn over to our opponent. But before we are going to do that, our opponent does actually make a little bit of a misplay here, because he does not wait till the end phase to do this. He does this in the main phase. So that is actually going to allow us to set another trap after he banishes off of the Sure Egg, which obviously is not really ideal for him, but it's going to work in our favor. So we're just going to go ahead and set the summon limit and see what our opponent can do here against our wall of mysterious traps. So to start, we're just going to go ahead and activate the Cyclo Coaster, and he is going to bounce that before we get the chance of actually getting any value off of that, which is completely fine. We're still working with 4 traps here. And we're going to just activate the Dogmatic Punishment when he enters the battle phase, popping that Apollosa, and then using Entis to pop that Shurig, leaving him with a very small 1600 attack beater, essentially. Then we're going to go ahead and use the time ticket, grab a coaster that was to like compensate for the coaster that was destroyed. Then we're now actually going to get the coaster's effect, because you can actually activate as many of these as you want per turn. You can only use its effects once per turn. So we're just going to get the value, get the Arlecchino, which is going to be really good. So we're going to take that damage, no problem. Then in the end phase, we're going to flip the summon limit so that we can get our Arlecchino out onto the board. And yeah, we're just going to go ahead and go into our main phase and use the Arlecchino's effect, pop in that double Dragon Horse to get it off the board, and that's going to give us back our Arlecchino, which is nice. Then go for time ticket, pay 8, feel great, add Kamika, normal summon Kamika, Kamika effect, set a Horror House directly from our deck, set a Cyclone Coaster, go battle phase. He is going to activate the Revolt, going to summon 4 and link into Shurig, get a bunch of value there, banish one of our cards. What does he go for the banish? He goes for the one that we just set, so this Horror House, which is fine because we're just going to set Imperial Order and call it a day. And yeah, going on here into this turn, he's going to activate Tenki, add a Thoroughblade to hand, normal summon out Fractal, and then here we are going to Torrential his board away, and then activate Arlecchino, summon out the Arlecchino, and he kind of, I mean, he could special summon out the Keras, I do believe, and but all we would have to do is use Arlecchino's effect to flip it face down, and he'd kind of be SOL there. So now we're going to go ahead and draw into the Wonder Wheel, which isn't amazing, but also not the worst thing in the world. Just going to swing for 26, pass the turn there. So now he's going to normal summon out Keras. We're going to flip that face down with a Horror House and see what else he's got here. So still got nothing here. This Phantasme is absolutely dead in his hand, which is hilarious. Now we're going to go ahead and use Arlecchino's effect to pop the Keras, and then use Nadir Servant to get us an Ecclesia to our hand. And our opponent is just going to scoop it up here because there's really nothing he can do at this point, and we're just kind of overpowering him with back row. So that's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, I would appreciate if you hit the like button and maybe the subscribe button if you want to see more of my content. But with that, I am just going to leave you with a peace out. Have a nice day. Goodbye.